ahead of ourselves of the series.
Pew, pew, pew.
Thank you, Riv. I want to touch on exactly what they're talking about, which is the team compositions that came out, how they were played. Kobe, at the beginning of the show today, you talked about how both of these teams in their last series had picked what were their most comfortable comps, or the comps that they really wanted to play, and lost. So the big question coming into today was, would they change things up? What would they pick up in their week off in order to come in with something new? Well, it looks like Impulse decided to go ahead and pick up Gragas on Rush, and it seemed to pay off a little bit for him.
No surprise there. I feel like Gragas is basically the Lee Sin of the Cinderhulk junglers. He has a dash that he can use to either engage or disengage. He has an AoE slow, and he has an ultimate for knockback, right? He's an early brawling champion that can affect the lanes very early. We'll see if Rush continues with that champion and plays him like that.
Yeah, it seemed like even though Rush was behind in CS to Owl Dominate at times, it's because Owl Dominate was taking multiple waves of lane CS.
Yeah.
I really feel like Rush was completely fine in the early game of that. And honestly, because Team Liquid did not kind of snowball ahead in the early game, the pressure that Impulse was able to apply with their ranged wave clear and turret threat was overwhelming to Team Liquid, who had low wave clears.
Yeah, I also thought that Team Liquid were going to go more split push with Rek'Sai and Zed on their team. That didn't seem like they fully committed to it. If you're going to team fight with this team, Nautilus is not an all-in-one tank in this meta. Like, he's got an ultimate that can set up consecutive crowd control abilities. But if that's all you're bringing to the table, you're not going to be able to win a team fight versus this team with Gnar. Impact's frontline presence was perfect. Impact just crushed the entire team the entire time. Assassin's popping in, he's right on top of them. Zed or Vladimir or Vayne, he hops on anybody who's trying to get to his back line, and Impact did a really good job peeling and landing crowd control this game.
Yeah, many times we saw the initiate from Team Liquid come through in the Nautilus ultimate, and then as maybe the follow-up came in, Gnar ult into the wall, you're all done, you're all stunned, and now we get to turn in on you.
Nice setup ult.
Impact was the carry of this game, honestly. That was what we were kind of thinking might happen in the TSM series if Impulse was going to succeed. And team compositionally, like if the Gnar gets ahead, that's what wrecks Team Liquid the most, especially early on in the game. Because we look at Team Liquid, they had the Vladimir in the top lane as the only magic damage on their team. Outside of that, they have Rek'Sai, Zed, and Vayne. So unless Impact somehow has to itemize a lot of magic resistance to get through the lane against Vladimir, which didn't have to happen because they started forcing team fights fairly quickly. As soon as he stacks armor, since he's able to do that before any of the AD carries, or Vladimir most importantly stacks up, he is going to be an absolute monster. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah. Plus, we have to talk about, the consequences of losing the first game like this. I think that may weigh heavily on Team Liquid. I keep going back to the point of the mentality of junglers. And I really feel like Rush is going to get inside Dominate's head after this game. We'll have to see, though, Team Liquid, if they can regroup after #1.
Well, Team Liquid won the first 2 games of their semifinal series. Impulse won the first game. Winners of series.
We've almost seen more reverse sweeps than we have.
I was going to say, this might be painting a pretty picture for Team Liquid. They're setting them up.
Everybody's going to reverse sweep.
Yeah, all right. Tia win.
Chat's polling for the reverse sweep here. One other thing we've talked about a lot with team compositions on Liquid's side in the past was Phoenix finally showed up in playoffs, playing playmaking champions, the assassins, things that allowed him to be aggressive. Then they took him off of those in their loss to C9. He's back on Zed this game. It doesn't work out this time, though, and there is a distinct lack of wave clear when you're going up against Team Impulse, who's the most aggressive of the aggressive teams.
So a pick that I think is going to be making a lot of noise in LCS finals is Orianna mid, especially with the return of Athenes and the fact that the protection and the enabling of certain champions is incredibly potent. That's what Orianna is in a lot of ways. He's an enabler and also someone who can protect other champions to enable them to succeed. And basically, when he is shielding whichever target Phoenix jumps into ult, since the overall teamfight composition isn't there from Team Liquid, suddenly Zed becomes heavily ineffective since Xiao was so fed with so much ability power at that point. If he's going to pick Zed, they need to somehow stop Xiao from being able to protect the targets that he is attacking.
I'm a huge fan of shields in the new meta because it gives you a lot of versatility in team fights. Now we aren't used to thinking of team fight trades. Like trades are mostly for a laning phase. You're like ADK is trading back and forth health. Now you actually have trades within team fights because they last so long. And shielding allows you to make those trades profitable. You can either put it on your tank for the extra resistances or protect your carry that's getting focused right now.
I was going to say, as we see these fights extend, right? They're no longer one and done 10-second, 5-second fights. They're extending to 15, 20, 30. The importance of things like shields and utility become that much higher because you can get off, instead of getting off 1 or 2 shields, you're getting off 4 or 5, essentially way more effective health.
Well, that's the thing, too, with armor and magic resistance. For instance, one of the reasons Gnar became such a monster in this game, imagine a Gnar with a 200 health shield. So if Gnar has 300 armor, that means in order to do 300 damage, you have to do, I had the numbers in my head a second ago. It's about 3 times as much. So it's close to like 900 damage to do 300. So that 200 damage shield shields 600 damage worth of damage because of how much armor is on Gnar. And the tankier someone gets, the more effective shields get. They actually multiply in that sense.
Right. It's a ruby crystal, right? Every time you're shielding them, it's a ruby crystal of health, but then multiplied by their armor. So you can, when you say, I'm going to shield this guy 3 times during a fight, that's 600 multiplied by 3. We've got 1,800 health. There's another person in this fight.
Plus, you don't get to cut through them with Blade of the Rune King percentage health things.
Good point. Yeah, so we saw a prevalence of the Blade of the Rune King. We saw the Vayne come out for Piglet. He actually was doing a fair amount of work there. We saw even at the end in the, the 2v5, mechanically he's there. So I do feel that when we take a quick look at what's coming up ahead of us, Piglet on the carry champion is something that Liquid can still look for, but maybe then they do go to that Orianna, try and enable him a little bit more, give him a little bit more protection as opposed to saying, well, we're all going in, you're on your own.
I'm pulling for the Azir for Phoenix. That's definitely my favorite champion of his.
Azir has popped up in the other regions as well, so maybe he will make his way back to North America. Well, while the teams prepare for the next match, head to lolesports.com and read up on how the pros prepare for the tank meta with the article, How to Win a Championship Playoff, Teams Adapt to the Cinderhulk item, written by our very own Joshua Jet Leesman. Woo! Boom, there it is. Then meet us back here for Game 2 between Team Liquid and Team Impulse. The spring playoffs continue after this.